Welcome to day 27 of the federal election campaign. Did anything happen in the last 24 hours? Oh, right. Now, before I talk about the utter shit show that was the debate last night and the implications this has for our democracy, I'm going to quickly tell you what's happened otherwise on the campaign trail. Mark Carney announced today that his platform is going to be out tomorrow. Pierre Poilievre's announcement today was essentially screw the turtles, because he said he would overturn the ban on single-use plastics, so that's like straws and grocery bags, stuff like that.
How long does this bread stay fresh and edible if it's not packaged? You ever think of taking your bread out when you go home and just leaving it unwrapped? How many days do you think it would be good before it gets dried out and moldy? How long would the other fresh produce here stay edible if it could not be plastic wrapped? The answer is a lot less time.
And Jagmeet Singh announced his Quebec platform today and said that his fully costed platform will be out shortly. And he announced this in the riding of one of his star candidates, Ruth Ellen Brosseau, which makes me think that maybe he's pulling back to play defense and try to save the ridings where he's got the strongest candidates instead of trying to pick up any new seats. Although technically this would be a seat that they'd be picking up because Ruth Ellen Brosseau lost this seat in 2019 and 2021. But before that, she was in the House of Commons as a very prominent member of the NDP caucus. But let's talk about the debates now. The debate itself was pretty boring. There wasn't really like a clear moment where someone landed like a hardcore knockout blow. Although there were a few instances where Poilievre got a dig in at Carney that Carney didn't really respond to or correct the record on. And Singh did interrupt a lot, but I actually personally, and I'm sorry because I know I'm probably in the minority with this, found a lot of his interruptions funny. Like, to give you an example, Poilievre was attacking Carney over pipelines, and then Singh piped in and was like, the Liberals bought a pipeline, so you should be happy, Pierre. And then Carney kind of like nodded, and I was like, I don't know if that was supposed to be a compliment, but anyways, there were a few funny little exchanges like that.
In the last 10 years, we've had the worst economic growth in the entire G7. We cannot afford a fourth Liberal term. We needed.
But overall, I don't really think that anything happened that would move the needle. And the new Nanos polling out today, reported by CTV, reflects that nothing has really changed. If anything, the Liberals have gone up just a tiny bit. By the way, you can vote now if you don't want to vote on actual election day. The advanced polls are open. If you're a registered voter, you can cast an early ballot in your assigned polling station between 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. any day from the 18th to the 21st. Now that all of the real news is out of the way, let's talk about the rebel news of it all. Because last night something happened that I think was a direct sign of how these kinds of personalities in media are an affront to your right to have clear factual information and to have politicians held to account. I know that a lot of journalists don't like to talk about the journalism side of the story or become the story, but actually in cases like this, it's incredibly important because the Canadian public was deprived of an opportunity to hear their political leaders be pressed for their positions on issues by the media because of some absolute clowns. So we all saw the French debate recently where right-wing media absolutely dominated the question and answer period and used it as a chance to just have their diatribes aired on national television, streaming, etc. It was pathetic, gross, and just abuse of these kinds of opportunities that should be geared towards holding politicians to account. But for those guys, it seemed to be all about themselves. No, seriously, they literally wrote that they vowed to dominate day 2 of the election debates. Because that's definitely what these debates are about, Rebel. It's about you. Anyways, as Jimmy said, they did succeed. One absolutely mind-blowing thing that became apparent on the day of the second debate was that the actual person who's like in charge of organizing and dictating who has access in these debates didn't know that Rebel News was registered as an advocacy group in the election. It had registered as an official third party. Third parties are groups that seek to influence elections but aren't parties or candidates. That is not a media outlet. So why the hell did they get to dominate the press conference? Anyways, a Hill Times journalist ended up in a confrontation with Ezra Levant, just like a verbal confrontation saying, you aren't journalists, you are registered as a third party in this election. It honestly wasn't that big of a deal. Like, some folks started calling it an altercation, which made it sound like maybe there was a fist fight, but it was literally just like a little shouting match, and then it was over.
He has third-party advertising trucks driving around this venue right now.
Anyways, at some point, Ezra Levant's press credentials got revoked. And then we start seeing that the post-debate scrums were cancelled. I should also note that earlier, while CBC was live on air, Rebel News tried to go up to them and disturb them with their antics. So they were just like causing all kinds of problems because they aren't there to do journalism. I mean, look at this dork. This is David Menzies, who's going around shining his flashlight right in people's faces, recording them, and then whenever anyone shoved him away, he started screaming and yelling and ran to the cops. Like, what a nerd. Anyways, the end result of all of that chaos caused by Rebel News and their grifter pals was that the press conferences got cancelled, which is really annoying because it was the only press conference that we've seen in this election campaign where Pierre Poilievre had to take follow-ups. Initially, the Debates Commission was saying that this was because of security concerns, and then that they were worried they would not be able to guarantee a proper environment for the question and answer period. And while they didn't outright say it, Global News' Mercedes Stevenson reported a source with direct knowledge of the situation said that the Debates Commission's decision to cancel the scrums was related to Rebel and Rebel staff trying to interrupt and get on air during a CBC broadcast. So clearly, based on this reporting, Rebel News' antics meant that we didn't get a press conference. And that decision is once again on the Leaders Debates Commission. Because rather than have a backbone and actually kick out these right-wing grifters, they would rather just cancel the whole thing to avoid those uncomfortable questions, I guess. I don't know. It's so chicken shit to me. We live in an era where bad faith actors are increasingly adept at taking advantage of situations where institutions don't have backbones because they're afraid of people screaming that they're biased or unfair or in some ways haven't sufficiently both sides to situation. That is something our institutions have to learn to reckon with. But until they grow a backbone, we are going to keep having situations like this where all of us, our democracy, our society, pay the price so that a few losers can get a viral moment. I mean, Jesus Christ. That is it for your Election Day Roundup. I will be back on Tuesday, not Monday, because it is Easter and I'm actually going to see my family and eat some chocolate, okay? But I will on Monday have an episode of Campaign Cops out for you guys. And if something really big happens, maybe I'll make a video. But probably I'll be spending Easter with my family. So anyways, until then, what do you think of all this?